everyone. We will be starting shortly. Thank you.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. We will be starting shortly. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for tuning in on this beautiful Tuesday morning for Prevention Action Alliance's monthly advocacy webinar. My name is JP Dorval, and I am the Manager of Legislative Affairs and Administrative Services here at PAA. And along with me today, we have our Executive Director, Marcie Seidel. So first and foremost, I feel like we've said this every webinar since the start of the new year, but it's budget season still. Last time we spoke to you all, the governor's budget was our main focus, as that budget set the parameters by which the legislature builds the actual biennial budget. And just as a refresher, the governor's budget is a set of budget priorities that he would like to see the state put dollars towards. It's just a recommendation at the end of the day, and the true budget will be passed by the legislature. So the budget this time around is House Bill 166. It is currently in the House Finance Committee. However, different parts of the budget are debated and heard in subcommittees. So if there's a part of the budget that deals with health, that'll be heard in the Health Subcommittee. If there's a part of the budget that deals with Veterans Affairs, there'll be a subcommittee for that. So if you want to hear specific hearings or testimony regarding certain parts of the budget, I would pay attention to which subcommittees were created in order to hear those portions of the budget. That can be a little confusing. Some people think that the whole budget or the budget in its entirety is heard in the Finance Committee, and that's not necessarily the case. So the first round of budgetary amendments are due this Friday. That's Friday the 12th. And there are a bunch of them. I think, and Marcie, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the hundreds, thousands when it comes to the amendments. So after this Friday, the budget may look completely different. So that's just something to keep in mind if you are following the budget after the amendments drop this Friday, the budget may look completely different. So please pay attention to that. Next week and the week after that, so the week of the 15th and the week of the 22nd, the legislature will be on Easter break. So if you do follow the budget or you haven't had an opportunity to really delve in to see what the budget has as of right now, or post-amendment dropping this Friday, the next 2 weeks will be a good opportunity or a good time for you all to catch up on what's happening. Given that there won't be any committee hearings and everything will be kind of quiet, on the side of the legislature, it will be a great time for you guys to play catch up if interested. So hearings for the bill will start up again the week of the 29th. That's the week after. And the bill obviously needs to be sent over to the Senate soon in order for the bill to pass by the end of the fiscal year. Just another reminder, the state runs from fiscal year to fiscal year. It doesn't really follow the calendar year. So the end of the fiscal year is June 30th, and obviously the start will be the 1st of July. So just please pay attention to that if that is of interest to you. So that's it for the budget. We have been following it as closely as possible. It's a very long document, obviously, and some parts are going to be missed. So if there's anything within the budget that you are concerned about or that you've noticed that you want us to address, or at least you want to make sure that we're aware of, please let us know. You can email me, you can email Marcie, you can call, whatever works for you. It's a team effort at the end of the day. It's a long document. So if you guys want to help out with that, that's great. I do know that one thing that caught my eye when glancing through the budget in the first go around was there's a Tobacco 21 initiative in the budget. So that just goes to show that it doesn't necessarily need to be just finance related. There are also some law changes in there as well. So please pay attention to that. So next on our agenda is Senate Bill 57. Now, Senate Bill 57 is something that we are very interested in here at Prevention Action Alliance. We are remaining an interested party for numerous reasons, and I will go over those. However, this bill will decriminalize hemp and hemp products in the state of Ohio and set up a cultivation licensing program. So the 2018 Farm Bill, the federal bill, also known as the Agricultural Improvement Act of 2018, legalized the production of hemp as an agricultural commodity and removed it from the list of controlled substances. So that's the bill that passed last year at the federal level. So following the footsteps of the federal government, the state is now aiming to legalize the growing of hemp and sale of hemp products at the state level. So this bill is sponsored by Stephen A. Huffman, not to be confused by his cousin, Matt Huffman, who's also in the Senate. So there are two Huffmans in the Senate. There's Stephen A. Huffman, who's a physician. There's Matt Huffman, who's a lawyer. So Stephen A. Huffman is the one sponsoring this bill. There's also another joint sponsor, Brian Hill. However, Brian Hill is leaving the Senate soon for another employment opportunity. I do not know who's going to replace his district. I believe his district is Senate District 20. I don't know who's going to replace him, but as of right now, any questions that you want to direct to the sponsors of the bill, just direct them to Stephen A. Huffman, because I don't know what's going on with Brian Hill and his office. So it is the intention of Stephen Huffman, or Senator Huffman, to have this bill pass through both the House and the Senate before the General Assembly breaks for the summer. So that's quick. So the minute the budget process ends, the General Assembly plans to break. So that means this bill is going to get, it's on a fast track out of the General Assembly. And as you can see by this slide, it's moved very quickly. So it was introduced on February 20th, was referred to the Senate Agricultural and Natural Resources Committee 26th, passed out of the Senate on March 28th. And keep in mind, some bills take 2 years to pass out, and this bill within a month has passed out and was voted out the Senate 30-0. So there aren't many opponents to this bill at all. The bill is currently housed in the Agricultural and Rural Development Committee in the House, and had a hearing, or is having a hearing today in the House, and that will be a sponsored testimony. So this bill does a lot of things besides just decriminalize hemp. It prohibits the State Board of Pharmacy from listing hemp or hemp products as controlled substances, requires the Director of Agriculture in consultation with the Governor and Attorney General to submit a plan to regulate hemp cultivation to the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Agriculture for approval in accordance with federal law, requires the Director of Agriculture to establish a hemp cultivation and processing program to monitor and regulate hemp cultivation and the processing of hemp to produce cannabidiol. Requires a director to issue hemp cultivation licenses and hemp processing licenses. Requires a director, and by director, they're referring to the Director of Agriculture. Requires a Director of Agriculture in consultation with the Governor and Attorney General to adopt rules establishing standards and procedures for the hemp program that comply with federal law, establishes prohibitions, procedures, criminal penalties, and additional enforcement mechanisms to enforce the program. Establishes in the state treasury the hemp program fund, which must be used to administer and enforce the program, and also establishes a hemp marketing program. So it does a lot of things. The one thing that we are focusing on as our advocacy duties, as PAA, is the hemp program fund. We are looking to see if we can use the dollars that will be placed in that fund for some sort of educational campaign revolving around medical marijuana, CBD products, and hemp. Because, for people who aren't experts in this and people who aren't familiar with marijuana and marijuana's byproducts, this whole process of hemp, medical marijuana, CBD product is confusing. A lot of people don't understand what's happening. There's a lot of confusion on the streets, and some people are taking advantage of that and selling products illegally. So we want to make sure as advocates that people are aware of what's legal, what's not legal, and the effects that these products can have on your body. So that is something that we are working on to see if we can get that included in the bill. Off the record, obviously, Senator Huffman and the Department of Agriculture were open to the idea. Whether the idea gets implemented, we're still working on it, and we will keep you guys in the loop. Looking at the supporters of this bill, just to give you guys a sense of just the widespread support that this has. This bill is supported by the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, the Ohio Council of Retail Merchants, the National Federation of Independent Businesses, the Ohio Farm Bureau, the Ohio Grocers Association, the Ohio Wholesale Marketeers Association, the American Massage Therapy Association, and others. And this list does not include any of the private supporters as well. So this bill has a lot of widespread support. There's a lot of money behind this bill for obvious reasons. So as of right now, we're seeing an interested party trying to see if we can add that educational program to the bill, and we will keep you guys updated. So this is a great segue into Marcie's portion of our discussion, which is just a general overview of marijuana, cannabis, and hemp, and how those markets are really slowly creeping into Ohio and what that means. So, Marcie, you can take it away.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to have such a beautiful day and to have you join us today on our advocacy webinar. There's lots of things going on, as JP mentioned, and we appreciate all of you being a part of that and showing your interest and your support for what we're doing in the state of Ohio. As JP just talked about Senate Bill 57 and how it's rapidly moving through the legislature, we are not terribly enthused about this bill, but we also realize when we look at all the individuals that are up against it, that's quite a formidable group of individuals. And everyone seems to be very excited about it going through. They see dollar signs that there'll be money coming into the state of Ohio. And that's pretty much what we're seeing from our legislature as a whole, is that there looks like an opportunity to make money, then that's a good thing to have happen. With that, though, when you look at marijuana, you look at cannabis, you look at hemp, and all of those things, there's a lot of drawbacks to them, and there's a lot of public health issues that surround them. So while we are remaining a interested party on this, We're doing that to try to make lemonade out of lemons, because we know this is probably just going to go through no matter how much of a campaign we mount. So let's mount it in a different sort of way. And JP very eloquently spoke about our way of doing that by taking the possibility of a fund and getting a large statewide scale campaign, educational campaign for people to understand. I have many of you may have heard me say along the way that I have had conversations with legislators, one a senator and one a House of Representative individual, who talked about how wonderful medical marijuana was because it didn't get anybody high. And clearly at that level, if people don't understand exactly what's going on with marijuana, and that there is in fact THC in it, and in fact there can be as high as 70% THC depending on the product, they clearly don't have the educational knowledge that they need to make good decisions. So I think it's become incumbent upon us in the prevention field to figure out how we do that. And while I have for the last 2 years sat here with volumes of information that I would like to get out to individuals, there's lack of time, there's lack of resources to get that done. And that's where brilliantly at one of our SPECA meetings, someone suggested, why don't we consider doing this, getting the funds from the Hemp Bill? And that was a brilliant idea, and we've decided to take that up, take the mantle on that, and run with it. So we will be doing that here. Once we get the groundwork laid, it will be really important for all of you to weigh in with your legislators and anybody that you can to indicate what a really good idea is. We need to be able to put out there why people need to be educated, that there's a lot of misinformation out there. People don't understand that why is cannabis different than marijuana? Well, it's not, but they think they might be. How is medical marijuana different from marijuana? Well, there's no difference, but they don't understand that. What is the hemp? Hemp is different from marijuana in the sense that it has a very low THC. 0.3% is all THC it should have in it. But other than that, there are no distinguishing characteristics that are different than marijuana. So when we start having this growing in the crops in our communities, we're not going to be able to distinguish whether this is marijuana with high THC or just hemp. And that will make law enforcement, difficulties for law enforcement trying to figure that out. It will be an opportunity for the black market to flourish a little bit more in marijuana production. It's certainly, even at the hemp level, if young people can go on the internet and find out how to make hashish from even low level of THC hemp, they can make that still into a stronger drug that can get them high. So there's a lot of perils that are waiting there for us, and a lot of education that needs to be done so people understand exactly what's going on. The industry has created an incredible opportunity to let everybody think that it is just a benign drug. There is nothing that can cause any harm or difficulties for anybody. By all means, it's a medicine, so how could it be something harmful? So we have to be able to counter that misinformation with accurate information, and we need the money and the resources and the network and the organization to get that done. So stay tuned. We're going to work hard on that here at Prevention Action Alliance. You can see in the slide that's up now that when I was recently in Amsterdam, these are the kind of products that were prevalent on the shelves there in Amsterdam. So you've got cookies, you've got brownies, they had cannabis alcohol, they had you name it, and in whatever kind of product. And these are the kind of products that are enticing to, well, not even to young people, to older people with a sweet tooth. So again, lots of education that needs to be done. Okay, I'd like to just kind of keep you updated, as always, about where the Ohio Medical Marijuana Control Program is. They are slowly getting up and moving up to what will be full speed. I'm not sure when that will happen, where everything that they had put in place will happen, but we can see the benchmarks that are happening here. There will technically be 16 level 1 provisional license for cultivators, and these are the larger grow sites. Only 8 of them now have licenses that they can go ahead and start growing and producing the marijuana. Then there will be ultimately 13 of the smaller provisional licenses or sites, and currently there's only 8 licenses that have been received for certificates of operation. So while they're not up to speed in getting all of the marijuana sites up and moving, they are certainly about halfway there, and marijuana product is flowing into the market now. In dispensaries, we will ultimately have 56 provisional licenses. Right now, only 13 licenses have received their certificate of operations licenses. So there's a ways to go before we have all of the dispensaries up that we want to have. Here we go. Here's the defense for those who are curious. These are the dispensary locations that are open at this point. You can see they're kind of spread throughout Ohio. Interestingly enough, there are 2 out of 13 that are in Jefferson County and Wintersville, which I think is really interesting. In fact, Wintersville was the first place where the first one opened. But they continue to come online, so watch for them in your neighborhood if you're going to get one. We just had the pharmacy board updated the sales figures for this month, and for the first part of the year since it opened, there has been just under $3 million in total sales and about 382 pounds of product of marijuana that has been delivered into the dispensaries, and that's quite a lot of product for not having everything up and moving. But we then have the patient update and the numbers. Right now we have about 28,275 recommendations where doctors have actually recommended marijuana to individuals, but only 24,556 of those registered patients have actually gone forward with the recommendation and logged in. And you can see from the breakdown there kind of the veteran status, the indigent, and the terminal diagnosis. I think it's sort of interesting that of the 24,000 or the 28,000 recommendations, only 128 patients have the terminal diagnosis. I think long ago when this was being brought and introduced into our society by those that wanted medical marijuana, they pretty much claimed that this is for the end of life, and we're finding, in fact, that's not exactly how it goes. You can see here in caretakers, we have just nearly 1,500 registered caretakers at this time. And then we have the more than 9,800 unique patients who are purchasing medical marijuana. Now, that I'm not exactly sure how to explain that at this point, so I will come back to you on that. But those are the statistics we're getting from the medical marijuana program at this point. Physicians, we have 448 physicians who are certified to recommend, and they are kind of dispersed throughout Ohio, but mainly in the 3 large cities. So you'll see the 3 C's of Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati have the majority of those. So the program is hoping that there'll be more that go out into the smaller communities or the rural areas so that everybody has convenient access to them if they want to. We will have ultimately 39 provisional licenses for processors. Those are the people that take the raw marijuana product and change it into food stuff, into creams, oils, all the different sort of ways, tinctures, all the different ways that one can consume medical marijuana products. But only 2 of them have actually certifications for their operation at this point, and more will be coming online as we move along in process. There are supposedly 5 provisional licenses for testing. Right now there are 3. We understand that a couple have dropped out because of the federal regulations and the difficulties along the way, but there are enough now that we'll be able to continue to test the product so that you will be able to know, those who are using medical marijuana will be able to know exactly what the content of the marijuana is, its THC level, its CBD levels, what pesticides, what fertilizers were used in the making of that product or the growing of that product. And I guess that's pretty much where we are right now on the marijuana updates and the legislative updates. We encourage you to ask questions if you have some questions, and let us know what you're thinking and what we've missed here today.
Thank you, Marcie. Yeah, so for the last couple of minutes, obviously, we'll leave it open for questions. Let's see. We got one that came in. So it looks like we have a couple questions, actually. So the first question that we received, apparently a local radio station in an area of the state was touting their pharmacy's ability to infuse CBD into the prescriptions they mix. And our viewers asking, since there are no operational dispensaries in the area, is the Board of Pharmacy addressing the guidelines with those pharmacists?
That's a great question, and I don't know the answer to it. I suspect that they probably don't even know about it, and that would be incumbent upon us to let the Board of Pharmacy know that it's happening. Right now, it's still illegal. The Hemp Bill hasn't passed, which would maybe free that up. And certainly, if it doesn't go through the process that's in place in state law with the medical marijuana control program, it's illegal. But that's the problem that we're finding so much now, is that the laws between the state and the federal government and communities are so loose, and no one understands it, that lots of things like this are taking place. And I think we really need to be careful that public health doesn't take the brunt of what's happening here, and that we compromise individuals' health along the process. So if someone offline can send me what pharmacy that is, or if in fact go ahead and contact the Board of Pharmacy directly, that would be wonderful, because I think someone needs to know what's going on here.
Alrighty, and our next question from another viewer is regarding the 4,000 patients who did not register but received the recommendation. So between the difference between these two numbers on this slide, and this viewer wants to know, Marcie, what is the purpose of getting a recommendation but not registering? He's a bit confused, so I don't know if you can bring some light to the difference between that number.
Yeah, that's curious for all of us to try to understand why they're not doing it. We have a medical marijuana advisory committee tomorrow, and I'd certainly be glad to ask along the way what their theory is and why people are doing that. I just no idea. I think people are curious about getting a card. I think people maybe want to, but they just have it. But they really, and to be honest, I think a lot of people could be toying with the idea of getting a card, but they really don't need one. And that again shows up the possibility of people kind of abusing the system. So if I can find out that answer, I certainly will, because I don't know that I can understand it either.
Alrighty, and I believe that is it for questions so far. So we will hang around for a couple more minutes to see if any other questions trickle in.
Yeah, well, we're waiting for some more questions. I just thought I'd pull out some things here that I think are interesting about the conditions most common for recommendation. And the number one condition that far away is the most reason that people get a medical marijuana card is for chronic, severe, or intractable pain. And again, we were not surprised by that at all. The second one is the post-traumatic stress disorder. The third one is fibromyalgia, which again is a pain-related condition. And then the fourth one, but it's still way down in comparison, is cancer. So those are the main reasons that people are getting the cards right now. So I thought that was interesting information. As they continue to update the statistics each month, we will find out if those change at all, and we'll keep you updated on that.
So it looks like we have about 2 more minutes left. So I will once again wait. However, while we're waiting, I do want to mention that another bill that we are interested in and that we're working on being involved in is Senator Sykes's Health Education Standards Bill. That's something that he reached out to us to see if we would be an interested party for. We are meeting with him to discuss the ins and outs of the bill and where we stand. And obviously, as of right now, we are in support of the bill. And I don't believe it's been introduced officially yet. He's kind of just getting a sense of who the players are and where the support will come from. So we will be reporting back on that once that moves forward. It doesn't look like we have any other questions. So I'm going to go ahead and end this webinar. Thank you once again for tuning in, and we will see you guys next time.